Welcome to Podcast This Escape, the podcast where we talk about the escape room that we escaped from in the previous episode of this podcast. Congratulations, Bradley and Amanda, you did it!
Woohoo!
We did it!
You guys did great. That was so much fun to listen to. I think you did very well. You found the right clues. You looked at. How do you feel you went? Did you enjoy playing through the room?
That was a lot of fun. I really liked how it was all laid out. I was worried I would get mixed up, but the layout it felt really fair, and I'm really happy with it.
Oh, wonderful.
Are you a drawing person? Did you draw a map for yourself?
I had to.
It was required.
You told me to draw the map.
There's no other way.
Thank you.
You said you can go ahead and draw a square. I drew a square instantly.
I appreciate that. Some people still don't. I say I want a map and they just draw dot points. Honestly.
The fools.
I did not. I drew my square retroactively because I am such a crappy drawer. I know that whatever square I would draw first, I would not be able to contain everything inside somehow. So I drew the stuff first and then the square around it.
A novel approach.
If it's anything like my drawing, it just ends up being a lot of rectangles and then like two circles, one for the lollipop, one for Sarah. Everything
I
else
had
is
many
a rectangle.
lollipops in the thing. Yeah.
Well, as well, you should have.
I feel like I always lose confidence when I'm drawing a map partway through, where I start by drawing each object and thinking, I'll remember what that is because it looks so photoreal. Look at this. Oh, obviously, that couldn't be anything but a cabinet with melted chocolate underneath. And then I just start labeling everything halfway through. Like, no, I'm not going to know what this square is compared to that square. I was so confident. You guys did really well. It was a lot of fun. I did the play test for this room recently.
I gotta say, the biggest thing I noticed, Billy was doubtful when doing the playtest whether melted chocolate key mold was intuitive enough.
That's true, and you guys were doing it before you even had all the parts. So I was proved incredibly
Validation.
wrong. I just thought, who's going to think to make a mold out of these things to get
You were chucking chocolate all over the place.
You were trying to mold.
I was desperate to mold that chocolate.
Trying to mold chocolate into other chocolate to have a double chocolate mold. So clearly it is. I still wonder how common it's going to be for people to do that. Clearly it works. I just wonder if there's someone out there who's going to be like, why would I? That wouldn't have the structural integrity to perform as a key under pressure. It's made of chocolate. That's an issue. And surely the mold wouldn't be that accurate, just made out of chewing gum.
Surely we have to kiln fire this chocolate.
Just don't get engineers to play it and it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's it. We'll put a notice on the room. No engineers.
No engineers allowed.
They are much like chocolate vendors. They are barred from winning golden tickets.
If
this
your
is
knowledge
too whimsical for engineers.
If your knowledge of molding is any better than having watched the opening credits to Conan the Barbarian, then you cannot do this room.
Quite frankly, if you are an engineer with such difficulties with the realism of this room, I just don't think Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is for you.
That's probably true.
I like that you. I'm gonna get my narrative nerd on here, but I like that you started in the candy shop. Like part of me's like, oh, we don't get to play one with the in the factory or whatever, but so many people just want to start in the factory. I like that you're like, no. First we got to find the ticket.
The thing is,
and I it really sets the mood and the tone and everything, and I'm looking forward to listening to the rest.
See, the thing is, for me, in that 1970s movie, the most exciting parts are everything before the Chocolate Factory. The Chocolate Factory itself is hilarious, but you get a million characters and a million stories before that opening day. It's phenomenal.
It's one of the best build-ups, right? It's you only hear about the factory. It's I think, what is it, a good 45 minutes to an anything actually happens in the factory?
You get the story of a woman whose husband has been kidnapped and the ransom is her case of Wonka bars. And she says, how long will they give me to think it over?
That's right. I do think it probably took a lot of self-control for Danny not to have an entire room centered around the teacher in Charlie's.
Do you
Oh
remember
my God,
his
that
teacher? I gave him a little. He has a mini cameo, just as your boss. When I said your boss dismissed you, and then undismissed you, and then redismissed you to go and find chocolate bars.
It's the most subtle reference to the movie in the entire script.
I love that character so much.
Really, if this was a 10-episode arc, I think 2 of the episodes would be set in that classroom.
Yep.
One doing weird chemistry and one working up percentages.
That's true. So, did the two of you have any moment during that room that you felt the smartest, or that you enjoyed, that really sort of clicked
What
for
made
you?
you feel good?
Amanda, did you have a moment that really hit home?
I think the one I had, the false moment that hit home when I was really sad that 625 wasn't an answer,
Oh.
mostly because of the level of ecstatic that I had right before it, and then it just like. But I think we could agree that making the key mold was. I think I maybe got a little overwhelming with my enthusiasm for that.
Yeah, you assumed wordplay before the actual wordplay puzzle.
Yeah, it's like describing it all. Yep.
An avalanche of realization.
Yep.
And yeah, Brad, how about you?
I really liked the being able to get the 6 to 5 part. If
was
inspiration hadn't struck me, then I could have been staring at this wall of chocolate bars for like an hour.
That was great. It was you who noticed there were 4 chocolate bars that
yes, I was
fit
so
the
worried
6
because you had
something
like
5.
you had like a false start on that puzzle where like straight away you went 6 to 5.
Those numbers are on the
bars,
chocolate bar
there
prices.
There are a couple of things that start with 6 and end with 5. That can't be it. I'll move on. No, wait, no, come back, please. No, you had the right idea. So that was very interesting to listen to.
But you got it. The most fun one, I think, for us to listen to, and it was the same in the playtest.
It is wild.
You said those Italian flag chocolate bars, first and 9th in ad. Which to us, on our end, knowing what the answer is, just sounds like you've just said the answer.
It is wild. Once
You've
you know
clearly
the
got it.
solution, you literally, as soon
you
as
can't
you
not hear it, right?
Yeah, as soon as you found the chocolate bars, you're like, okay, well, the red, white, and green ones, yeah, they say first and 9th in ad. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder what that means. And I did the same thing because I solved it during the playtest. And you, I will say, to your credit, absolutely demolished me on that puzzle. I spent a good 15 minutes going, first and 9th in ad. 9th stand fur ad in fur stand 9th. Infer? Do you infer standing on a 9th? What is going on with this part? How do I do this? Do they all have the same number of that? I was so lost. But the same thing, I was reading it out and Danny was like, well, you've got it. Like, I've just heard you say it, so I'm sure you'll get there. It took me so long to understand what I was doing.
I will admit, so for those who haven't listened to our podcast, my co-host, my co-host and friend, Errol, designs puzzles, and that has been a go-to for him. So the very first time I was confronted with that puzzle, I'm like, I don't understand your stupid words. And then eventually I got it. And so when I saw those, it's one of the first things I go to now. And I just...
That was actually really interesting because you did say it. You said, I wonder if it's one of those ones that you slur together. But even then, I would say it took 10 to 15 seconds after that before you got, wait, no, that is sort of what it is.
Yeah. It's I doubted, and then it's oh, no, I'll go back to it. Yeah.
So, yeah, even with that idea in mind, it's not always instantaneous, which is very interesting to note. Oh, now, I want to talk a bit about you guys. Do we have anything else to talk about in the room itself?
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff to still talk about in this room.
Yeah.
I thought the jelly puzzle is interesting because I think you sort of got quickly that you probably didn't have the answer to that song. The what can wriggle through the dew, and I was a little worried you were going to get caught up on being wait on, this is a riddle and we can fully solve this as to what, because it is one of those ones where and there are a few cases of this where you find the puzzle and then you go off and you have to look for the thing that allows you to interact with that half of the puzzle. So that riddle is not really solvable hugely. It'd be a bit wild for someone to be wait a minute, is the answer here going to be baby snake ring? So and I thought you did really well at noticing those moments about being able to see something and think this is going to be a puzzle that I can't solve yet.
That's true.
And I think that's a
That
really
was very
interesting
intuitive
skill
of you.
that takes a long time to develop. And I think when we've had guests on who are not so used to puzzles or escape rooms, that I think is one of the key things where people fall down is they'll look at something and they'll think this must have a solution, and they'll spend ages and ages doing something that can't be solved because they haven't been able to recognize that it probably doesn't have an immediately doable solution.
And that's a hard moment because you don't want to overly hint, but you also don't want them to feel like they've just wasted 20 minutes.
Yeah, right. So I feel like that is a skill that the both of you had, which I think doesn't get noted much when people talk about puzzle solving abilities. But I think the ability to recognize when something probably has a second part is incredibly important. And I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the only nudge that we really had was like Danny, for instance, said, "I don't think you've looked at everything yet." Or like there's other stuff you can look for. And so, okay. Because I the only reason I came back to that riddle was because I thought we'd gone through everything and we just had nothing else but to stare at these words. And I was like, yeah. But it is a really important, it's one of the most important things as you get to doing more escape rooms or even just puzzle games where it's like, okay, let's put this to the side for now. There's probably something we don't have, and trying to convince new players, like when I play with my family, and they're like, "No, I can solve it." I'm like, "You really can't." I'm not saying you're dumb. I'm saying they're literally hiding the answer or the key to the answer somewhere else.
It can be a funny balance sometimes of being worried, like, is it possible for them to solve it without doing all of the clues? And then trying to figure out, because when you're so used to different levels of puzzles, escape rooms, usually you don't have to do much of that level of inferring. Usually you will find the answer somewhere. But then you have experience with the tougher ones like puzzle hunts. There are not going to be extra clues. You just have to search and make assumptions and get to the right answer through
puzzle hunts are like,
wild
I'm
logical
sorry.
leaps.
Clues? And they run it off.
So you have to make sure that you're getting on the same wavelength as the creator sometimes.
Yeah. It is. Well, when I was actually just thinking, I think, and look, for people who are listening to this episode now, there will be spoilers, I think, for some looker puzzles.
That was
and
the
things
tough
like
decision to make.
So
How vaguely to be talking, because I really want to talk about it.
I think I'm going to talk about some specifics, so please play that game if you haven't played it. I think The Looker has a good example of this quite early on, where you have a puzzle, you're setting up people can go through mazes, and then you have the unsolvable maze fairly early on that requires you to actually go round the back of the screen, find the word start, and connect it across to end on the other side, and ignore the puzzle completely. And I remember playing that and having a similar moment of I spent a long time being like, there's got to be something I can do to solve it. It seems unsolvable. Can I do this? Can I do that? And the moment to solve that puzzle is to accept that it cannot be solved and to try and look for some other solution. So I think that's a similar sort of thing to this, right? Being able to tell when puzzles can't be solved. Is that something that, like, you in designing that and putting that together, did you think it would be very obvious immediately that people would say, "Oh, can't be done," or do you get worried watching people sit there and be like, "How do I solve it? How do I solve it?" If you've watched other people play it.
There were a couple of puzzles where that was the intended effect. It was kind of a reference in its way to The Witness too, where there's a puzzle early on that you go up to and you have no hope of solving it. I think like cracking the cryptic, just sit down, and they just sat down and solved it though.
I feel like I may have done that as well. I know the one you mean.
But it's interesting that a certain subset of players will not give up on a puzzle until it's solved, even if there are clues elsewhere that are building up to that. I was thinking of it mostly in terms of the puzzle upstairs in the castle next to the tower, where there are all those symbols, and you're supposed to go out into the labyrinth and learn a little bit more about those symbols. But a lot of people will just be like, "Oh, there are 6 factorial solutions I have to try. This is ridiculous."
I can't believe they designed a puzzle like this and expect me to sit here and solve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's interesting about like the Looker is that when I was playing it was, you weren't necessarily sure what you were gonna get next in terms of, like, there was some building off another one, but sometimes the puzzles had to do with like, well, you're just going to have to do this kind of manual thing to figure out, and then sometimes it was you're going to have to notice something about the environment around you in order to get this puzzle. And so it was kind of fun to try and figure out. I'm like, okay, there was still like a core base of rules there, right? Like you can't go across the black line. That was a hard and fast rule, right? So when you come up, again, spoiler alert, but like when you come up to like the one puzzle where there's just like a big black line across the middle, and you're like, well, how am I gonna?
But it is true, because I think like, and it was something that we were, I think, pleasantly surprised by when we were playing it. Was we knew it was a comedy game, we knew it was a poking fun and in a friendly, nice way at the witness, and so you don't know whether or not it's actually going to be good in terms of puzzle design. You know what I mean? Like, you think, like, is the joke gonna be just that, are puzzles silly and they're not going to really be puzzles? And I think it was very refreshing to see that, like, there is some really smart and really fun puzzle design, but it is also in that element like an homage to The Witness, which I think when we talk about puzzle design and we talk about how to teach puzzles and how to teach through play, like The Witness is a shining example of, they don't tell you anything, they don't, like, you just start going, you find the basic rules, and it teaches you new rules purely by being like, the old rules aren't going to cut it here. You need to learn something new. Or you thought that would be a solution. It's no longer a solution. You need to now figure out why. And it's such a great like masterclass of how to get people to engage with puzzles and how to make them look at, okay, well, what am I missing? This can't be done. What have I not seen? And start to pull in those aspects. And I think the Looker,
it absolutely
captures the same feeling in those ways. In terms of being able to use those same devices to be like, you've learned it's a maze. Ha ha ha, it was a funny little maze. Isn't this easy? Now I've made it harder, and now I've made it impossible, and you have to figure out some new element. And now I've added symbols. How are they confounding your maze drawing? And it was really nice that even that progression of learning the puzzles felt like an homage to how The Witness teaches you how to learn a puzzle. And it was done very well. So it was nice to see. I feel like I had a point at the start of this, but it just turned into praise. I thought it was going to transition to something interesting. I just like to say it was very good. It was very fun to play through.
One of the things that play with that is I'm reminded of something I heard in an interview with Quentin Tarantino one time, where he'll make all these genre films and there'll be a twist. It'll turn it on its head. The thing he said, though, was that when you're doing a deconstruction of a genre or something, you still have to deliver the goods of what fans of that genre are going to try and get out of it. So I knew they would be like silly if I just made fun of puzzles and if I didn't have any respect for puzzles and just told jokes the whole time with no like real gameplay engagement. Then puzzle solvers would go to that game having played The Witness and they'd be like, oh, this is goofy. I'm not interested in this. But the fact that the comedy is actually taking place through puzzles that are fun is, I think, what makes it work.
Yes, you're right. That is exactly it. It's still a puzzle game, even though it's a parody of a puzzle game. It's not a parody of the idea of, well, it is a parody of the idea of puzzle games, but it is not like anti-puzzle. It is not sitting there being like, aren't all puzzles dumb? Wouldn't you hate to solve these? It's clearly made from a place of love. And I think it is a very good example of how to put puzzles into your games and how to make them work. And there's some really clever implementations in the same way that The Witness had all the clever implementations of its basic structure. And even then, like being able to do a puzzle which is not a maze, but it is still drawing a line from one place to another. And I'm thinking now of the art puzzle, which is very simple, but it's just like you've drawn a line and it continually adds a reason that you were wrong. Oh, no, you didn't do that quite right. Oh, it simply needs more loops. Like it was... It's
now
really
you have
great.
too many loops.
I was really done with that puzzle because like I kept getting the same thing. Yeah, now you have too many loops. You still need more loops, and I wasn't putting it together because I was also watching Very Good Designer. You had that garbage can filling up, and I noticed that each paper, like they didn't just disappear. It was like filling up. I'm like, maybe it's the garbage can all along.
Garbage can.
Like, it was not, in fact, the garbage can.
Yeah. The respect for puzzles and coming from a place that is good for puzzles, I think, we talk about, there was a review somewhere that just said something along the lines of, if you like The Witness, you will love this game. If you hated The Witness, you will love this game.
Yeah. I think
it's a good way to be able to draw in both. It's astonishing.
One of the things that I like about it as well, and that I like about Escape This Podcast, is it encourages.
Us.
Yeah, I'm marrying the two together again. Look at that. It encourages what I consider to be my personal way of solving puzzles, which is just trying things. And I play with friends who are very much I will stare at it until I get the perfect idea.
Oh no.
And then
we've had this discussion a lot.
And it's fine because they are puzzle solvers, but I can't do it that way. And so I'm going to mention the one we mentioned it before the podcast, since we're doing all spoilers. It's the beep puzzle, right? Where I looked at that maze and I was thinking, like, there's no way out. There's no way to the end. Well, you know what? I'm just going to start drawing anyway and kind of see what I can. And then you hear you hear your voice come out and go beep, and I was like, what is this? And it's like just trying things and then suddenly making a little discovery in your little experiments. I love solving puzzles that way. Just like trying crap until something happens, or like logicking it out as you go. And I think that's what's great about Escape This Podcast as well, is that you know as much as you say, Danny, like, I'm not an improver and that kind of thing, but you will let people try things out, right? You will let them go wild with ideas, and that's often how things get solved.
I just desperately hope I've written a note for that one.
But it is true. I think, Danny, with this room, I think the best example of that for this room is the silliest puzzle, the key mold, right? Yeah. Where, as you can see, like, it was like, it's much harder to think, well, I've got a key, there is melted chocolate on the ground. Let me just sit back and look at this situation and discover that actually I'm going to mold the chocolate into, right? That, I feel, doesn't happen. But it was only through that moment of, like, I think Manda tried to eat some, right? It was like, I'm going to eat some, I'm going to interact with the chocolate, I'm going to put it on my finger, I'm going to leave. And then he's like, okay, now that you've started interacting.
And thank God I had a note for that.
Yeah, it's like you're uncovering more of the facts of this puzzle. You're getting more of the actual situation, which is, you now have the new information of when that chocolate leaves the sun, it very quickly hardens, it becomes quite hard. Bradley was like, well, let's test it to see how hard it is. Oh, this is like, you could use this to do something. It is not pliable. And so it was that same feeling, right? Of like, you have to play with the things to get the actual information you need to solve the puzzle. I think the beep puzzle is a perfect example of that as well. It is, at first glance, cannot be discovered because you do not have the information. And it's the same feeling of, an experienced puzzle person should be able to look at that and go, well, this cannot be solved. I need more information. I have to start poking and prodding, because without that, I cannot get to a solution. I think Cracking the Cryptic, when they played, had a bit of that issue where they spent too long staring at it, being like, now what? How would I figure this out? And it wasn't until they started playing where they finally decided there is literally no way to logic my way through this, so I'm just going to start. Oh, now I've heard beeping, and so. It's the same example as we were talking about earlier. It is knowing when a puzzle can't be solved and finding more information.
We have had this discussion a few times quite recently, because this is a difference in our play styles, me and Billy. When we do things, I am a lot more of the sit and stare type. And try to figure it out. And it's been a problem with playing things like Escape Simulator, because Bill's just walking around them and I'm starting to feel sick because I can't concentrate and there's just movement happening.
And I can only think by being like, no, I have to just start poking everything. I can't just stop. That's crazy talk.
That said, obviously there are some things, the Witness and the Look are both actively, like, it's like Hades, where you're rewarded with dying. Like, whenever you die, you get a reward. Whenever you try something and fail, it teaches you. It is trying to teach you that way, and it just is a lot more obvious that way. But in a lot of puzzle situations, you don't get rewarded for your failure attempts. And I think that just must be something about where I've come from in puzzles, where maybe it was because I was always a solo puzzle solving child, always doing everything on my own as a kid.
Yourself.
So there was
Solving
never
puzzles.
anyone to bounce ideas off of or to get feedback from as I was doing them. You just had to do it, then flip to the answer section and see if you got
See
it
if you
right.
had the right one. Turn the page upside down and read the answers at the bottom. No, yeah, I really enjoyed listening to you guys play that room. You did very well. There was a lot of stuff that you did much better than I did when I was trying to play test it. Do you think, Danny, like, was there anything major that changed from the playtest into the final product? I don't think there was.
No, absolutely not. There was just adding more fancy chocolates to the chocolate bar roast because that was initially there were only the ones that were $6, £6.25 or whatever, and so that was immediately guessable.
Yeah, we noted that like originally it only had
foolish.
4 chocolates. They were all $6 something.
They were the
G5.
$6.25, $6.05.
And I didn't solve it straight away. I went and saw the sign that said open 6 to 5 and I went, oh, 6 to 5, great.
But
look at that.
as soon as I said it out loud to him in the playtest, I started making a note to myself saying, this is not going to work.
It was also the case of if you just looked at the 4 numbers, like, well, there's only one number that's different every time. Let's just put in those middle numbers. And it was a bit too obvious without needing to solve it. You could just kind of look at it and be like, that's probably the answer.
4 numbers,
Put in some-
yay!
Yeah. It's like it's just a
Put in
4
some white
versus 4.
noise around there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just tried to hide them so you couldn't just look at the numbers and think, well, I may as well just try it, see what happens. But so
Yeah, without even needing the sign.
exactly,
Exactly.
right. You could have just seen what are the only thing that's different here. And so I believe that's really the only change is we just redid that picture.
Exactly.
And
It was
other than
that,
it was all
and
very
originally
similar.
the sign said like open hours 6 to 5, and we just got rid of the word hours because it wasn't helping or hurting. It wasn't doing
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, I think it said opening hours or open hours, and I think it was like, oh, if you just make it open 6 to 5, I think it feels a bit more like the concept of open is attached to the concept of 6 to 5. You want to open a lock, it's 6 to 5. Has made it maybe a little bit more of a puzzle. As
Very
opposed to just
tiny
a word.
difference. But yeah, that was it. Beyond that, it stayed pretty much the same.
Mhm.
And I'm interested to see where this goes because obviously this is a parody set of rooms. And
Yeah.
Ooh.
We all know parodies are never that good.
I would like to know what the songs
Wait a
are going to
minute.
be.
Oh no! Wait a minute.
yeah, I asked Billy what things haven't been included yet in the ones he's playtested that he feels it would be strange to not have. And so one of the things was, more songs.
Yeah, we do need more songs. I'm expecting Room 2 to be just a full room taking place in a laundry while a woman cleans clothes slowly with a stick and sings Cheer
Everyone's
Up, Charlie.
favorite moment.
And remember, that's the moment everyone loves, where his mother goes, Cheer up, Charlie, give me a smile. What happened to that smile I used to know? It's so excited, so cool. Everyone's so invested. She's just washing clothes with a
So
stick.
invested.
What?
Yay.
I need to go back and just look at some timestamps of this movie. At what point do they actually get to the factory?
There's 10 minutes left by that
It
point.
takes a long time.
They walk in the factory at an hour and 20. Willy Wonka just quickly kills 4 kids and then the movie's done.
Such a long song, too. It's like so condescending to your kid. Like, cheer up. Yeah, I know we're
Come on,
poor,
kid.
but
Just
come
'cause
on,
you're poor and
smile,
starving
kid.
and nothing's going well in your life, just be happy about it.
That was the funniest. I don't know. It's not that funny. It happens all of the time in media, especially young adult media. But just the fact that in the book, Charlie has a dad, and the movie just went, all right, what can we do? Dead.
Dead dad. Now he's sad. Look at that sad kid.
This is the only explanation for why they're poor.
Well, I think there's probably not much more to talk about with the room. Do you have other stuff you want to talk about?
I definitely want to talk about more the looker. I want to talk about its creation process. Tell me ideas. Tell me what you started with, how you grew this thing.
Yeah, I mean, there was at some point at which I was working on another serious business project, some kind of prototype, and it was just getting like so far away from me, and the scope was creeping, and it was getting completely too big for me to finish on my own. And at that point, I just started writing down like, what's the worst game I could make? What's the dumbest idea I can think of for a game? And I was playing The Witness at the time, and I was just making myself laugh. Be like, okay, what if it was The Witness, but like everything's a Chili's Kids menu that you just free draw in like Microsoft Paint. At that point, like yeah, I just immediately thought of the end puzzle, the dignified obelisk of knowledge. Because I even remember playing The Witness being like, I wonder if that's going to be one of the shapes.
Because, well, this was one of my big questions about it, is how much did it start from the little things, or how much was the big final puzzle the starting point, and then the rest was just building towards it? Because it's one of those ones where you start out, you're doing lots of little puzzles, and you have no idea that it's all going to interconnect and that everything that you've done to manipulate the environment was that important.
Yeah, it was just a joke to myself at first, but like as it started accumulating funny ideas that made me laugh, I was like, oh, I have to prototype this.
Yeah, and look, it worked out. I mean, the jokes in it as well. Like, the Witness is a fantastic game. It is a phenomenal puzzle game. It is also so ridiculous. And so, like the moment of having that first... The audio logs, like the audio log parodies of, you find the first one, it's an ad. It ends up being just a radio ad, and the next one, like, was so good because there was a moment in The Witness where, you start listening to these audio logs, and you're like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder what this is going to be about. And then you're 2 or 3 hours into the game, you find a new one, you're like, all right, I guess I'll press play. You ready for 15 minutes of philosophy that doesn't really connect to anything?
When playing the looker, finding the first audio log, pressing play, and your voice comes out, and it is, at first, the nice, normal, serene, very Witness-like voice, it gave me some, like, flashback dread.
Yeah, well, I think the reason things like that invite parody so much is that really The Witness is, you have to have the other half of the conversation with the game, because it doesn't really it doesn't really give you hints or clues, or it's not very gregarious about the way it interacts with you. One thing I like about this format of podcast, This Escape, if I can flatter you again, is is that it allows us to have like a little extra closure about describing the room, how it went, what we felt while we were playing it. And you don't really get that at the end of The Witness. You're sort of invited to keep musing on sort of what it means to you, and what the audio logs mean to you, and what's trying to be said. So I think it's definitely cathartic to people who either really enjoyed The Witness or really didn't enjoy The Witness, that at least they're able to know that somebody else played it and somebody else had some of these experiences.
Definitely true. It was absolutely like that to see it played, and every time you get a laugh, it is a "that's so true" laugh.
Yes, like the slow laser opening just keeps going. And he's like, yeah,
perfect.
I get it, because I know that feeling. I felt that feeling. I felt the, what's this doing? There it goes. It was, if you have watched the Cracking the Cryptic Witness playthrough, it was very fun to see him walk up the stairs, see that thing, and go, ooh, speed camera, and then walk away, because he decided they were speed cameras. But yeah, it really was, and I think that is true. I think there's that feeling of it's so relatable. It's so like we get it. Like, you don't need to have the jokes be like, hey, look, this thing's going to be slow. It was just so funny because we all felt it, right? Like, you've played The Witness, there's so much that you knew was a bit silly or a little bit annoying, and it was nice to see those and pop up, and just it was like a feeling of validation. It was like, yeah, okay, I get it. We did all feel that way, did we? We all agreed that was a little bit too slow. Or that was a little bit kind of pretentious, but like it's just a great. It is. Look, it's just good. If you're listening to this, you should have played it, because we're told you. I warned you about the spoilers. People at home.
Yep.
So I hope you all
Spoilers
enjoyed
plenty.
playing it. Yeah, it was great fun. And so was this room, Danny.
Oh,
Good
thank
work.
you. I like that it also
Yeah.
invites the other kind of nostalgia, not just very recent The Witness nostalgia. You get all the other games in there. You get a mini game of every kind.
The number of
Yeah.
games with the pretentious audio logs. Like, I like listening, and I'm someone who likes listening to pretentious audio logs in games, where I'm like, where I go, I'm like, all right, tell me about the state of the world and what it means to
I
be
lose
God.
it at them.
And yeah.
But yeah, I'm just thinking, like, I freaking love playing Snake.
Yep, playing the snake game in the middle of the looker was great.
Oh, that was stressful for a moment.
It
And then
was.
I was like, because then I'm like,
And-
where's it going to appear?
How do we do it?
How do I
just
do
lots
it?
of fun.
Stretching the memory from 17 years ago when it was all you had.
True.
I've revealed that yes, I did own that indestructible Nokia phone that had Snake on it.
Exactly. But it was also a really good way to think of like when you're breaking down games, when you're breaking down puzzles, and when you're breaking down things, to be able to see that like even though this was a game about drawing lines from one end of a picture to another end of a picture, that's a fundamental gameplay mechanic. To be able to note that, oh, you could do that, and it could give you the same conundrum that playing Snake gives you, which is how do you avoid running into your own tail?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
can I fit through this gap to get that piece of fruit? They were fruit, right? Those tiny black squares.
I
were meant to be
don't
fruit?
know. They were
Who
meant
knows?
to be
What
something?
a snake? Mice, I guess. Little immobile dead mouse.
I don't
mice
know.
that
It
the
was a
snake eating.
pixel.
But like to be able to note that like that issue, that problem is not inherent in the control scheme or the mechanics of or the pacing of Snake. It's a separate issue of if a line exists here, can I make sure I have enough space to get around it? Can I plan ahead with my movement
Yeah.
to give myself the most degrees of freedom? And that was also a problem that exists in drawing a line. And so that we could have the same feeling of Snake with absolutely nothing being the same in terms of input or pace or speed or like all those other elements stripped away. I thought it was a really,
Yeah.
But it was still Snake.
it's just a really good like
I ended up
breakdown of
having
the
a
game
very
of Snake.
thick black box because I just kept around the edge. Just
Yeah.
like, refusing to go any further. You know?
Yeah, I was really happy to be able to translate those mechanics. I thought that was interesting. Do it for Snake, do it for an on-rails shooter,
Yeah.
do it for
that was
chess.
so
I put
that chess
more-
was good. I like that.
I put more effort than I can reasonably justify into making that chess puzzle, which is a legitimate made in 3 puzzle.
That was amazing. It worked so
that
well.
what I liked about it was that you could solve it as a chess puzzle, and White has only moves, or you could solve it just as the line puzzle, following all the rules, where there's a unique solution, even though there are multiple starts and ends.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked really well. I think it was such a good example. We could talk about the looker for a long time.
Yeah, but again, I think that puzzle is a very good example of as you are solving it, you very much get the sense of, damn, the creator clearly put effort into this. They knew what they were doing.
I think that was the moment during our playthrough where you stopped and went, "Oh, it's really nice to play a thing where you can see that someone's put lots of effort into it."
Did you have a favorite puzzle that you designed
Ooh,
in there?
I think the puzzle I was most proud of from a design standpoint was the cannons one.
I was going to mention that one too.
Very
That one was
satisfying.
fun.
The reason I'm proud of that one in particular is because it almost could have been in The Witness. It almost could have been
hugely.
because it was related to perspective in such a
Yes.
way that it could have been an interesting concept that just follows in the footsteps correctly, in a way that I thought was interesting and people seem to find satisfying. I mean, some people found it satisfying just on the level of like the cannonballs feel really good when they hit the ships.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think that one. I think for me, playing through it, that was I think the point where I stopped and I was just like, this is like very well designed as a puzzle game or as a witness, like because it was like now we are dealing with environmental stuff and perspective stuff, and it is different, and it was. I think that was like one of the points to me where I was like firmly like, okay, yeah, this isn't a joke about puzzles. Like this is just smart. Like this is just well put together.
And
You could put that in any puzzle game, and you're right. That could have been exactly the same, except instead of S and E, just a line that you had to draw. You could have had that stock, like take that cannon puzzle, put it straight in the Witness, and nobody would have noticed.
what
Nobody
I
would have been like,
find-
"Oh, what is this weird puzzle?" Like it was just a great example of that type of solving and perspective shift. It was very good.
And what I find,
Nice work.
I really like it as a great example of a thing to look up to when it comes to puzzles as a format and as a medium for getting things done. Like, the idea of puzzles can be a medium for funny is amazing. And I really like that. And I really hope that we get to do more just in the puzzle world with that. Like, what am I doing? I always say, I don't know how to make puzzles. I just like telling stories. And I just happen to have chosen these puzzly rooms as my medium for that. And so to be able to say, great, puzzles can definitely be a story medium. Puzzles can be a comedy medium. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah, last year, Errol did his Cryptex hunt, like his puzzle hunt thing, and they decided to base it on like those internet memes you see. So every puzzle was like a different kind of thing. And my favorite one was, you know, those ads you see for like someone's in a house and it's blocked off and you need to pull a pin out that you let the lava in on them.
Oh yeah.
So one of them designed a puzzle based on that, and it was like it was so funny for me. It was like a great little parody, and I was like, yeah, puzzles could be funny too. It's great.
All right. Well, I think we should end that there as an episode.
Anyone else got anything that we desperately want as a talking point before we do the wrap-uppy stuff?
I just want to thank you again. I just want to thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, look,
it
was
was
an absolute
wonderful.
pleasure.
It was a pleasure on my part too.
Lovely. It was great to have you. So thank you again, Bradley, Manda, for coming on. Thank you, Danny, for running the room. Brad, if people wanted to see more of what you're doing, to look at your other games, to look at anything else, where should they go? Where should they find Brad on the internet?
You can find me on bradleylevel.com, or you can look up The Looker on Steam.
Yes. I mean, look, you should have played it already. We've given you too many spoilers. But I'll tell you what, if you haven't played it already and you listen to this episode, you'll still enjoy it. Go and play it right away. Like, just go and do it.
Did I mention it was free?
It's free.
Oh yeah,
everybody!
yeah. Oh damn, we should have been saying that the whole time.
I'll put it in post. In the start episode.
Free.
Oh yeah, I'll give myself a few reads. Free, and it's free, and I'll just edit those back in.
That should have been like a poster on the wall or something in the candy shop. Like, play the
should have been the ad.
Play the Looker. It's
Open the
free.
right bar, and Matthew Martin will open his factory to you for free.
Like the Looker.
Like the Looker.
Just like the Looker. And Manda, you're working on some narrative design projects at the moment. Where can people see stuff you're working on, things that are coming out in the future?
Righto. Well, you can go to my website, mandawhitney.com. I need to update it desperately, but I am going to be doing some design posts soon. My life's been pretty busy right now. You can also find me on Twitter, Manda Whitney. Made it very easy for myself. And then I am every Monday evening on Twitch. My name is Manpans on Twitch. Every Monday evening I have Mystery Mondays, where I play a mystery game of some sort, and usually fail miserably at it. But it is great fun. So yeah, I will be updating. I'll be updating my website. I will do it. I will.
Well, that was lovely. Thank you again for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening. If you wanted to help support the show, you can always sign up to join our Patreon. Anybody at any level can appear as an NPC in a room.
Oh yes, obviously we have Matthew Martin, who is the Willy Wonka-esque character. Thank you so much. And also for this room in particular, Sarah Wilson. Thank you very much. Our singing Candyman.
That's you. Look, this is the arc you want to be in for, because seems to be the first time that every single character isn't either a villain or an animal. So you're doing well to get your name in this one. I mean, maybe you're all villainous animals.
I don't know. Willy Wonka is not exactly the most up and up kind of business owner, you know?
He is just a horse in a hat. I'm assuming that's the point you were making. So thank you. There's also bonus episodes for anybody who's a $5 donor or above, so you can listen to the playtest audio of me trying to solve this room and us trying to work out some of the puzzles and change things around. There's also 2-Minute Mysteries, a series that we do there where we try and solve 2-minute mysteries written by Donald J. Sobel and try and figure out what they're going to be before reading and then seeing if we're disappointed after we've read it and try and solve them.
And a whole bunch of other things, like going through some Goosebumps, give yourself Goosebumps adventures.
Lots of fun. There's new bonus episodes every week, and there are badges for $10 donors and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's just a way to help support this show and solve this murder and other things that we make. So that we can eat food while making podcasts. So thank you for everybody who supports us over there. All right, I think we're done.
I think so.
Let's all say goodbye like the end of a children's show. Bye!
Once again, thank you guys so much, and thank everyone for listening.
No one said bye. You got everyone say
Don't listen to him. No, don't listen to him. He has no power over you.